Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Footprints. My name is Anthony Davis. I am an educator at Beverly High School. That's BHS for those folks who don't know. And joining me today is someone who's gone through a lot of adversity. We're going to talk a little bit about her footprints. The name of this particular episode, ladies and gentlemen, is Reinvention, Resilience, and the Courage to Begin Again. Okay. I got to tell you, these stories really shape our lives and help us kind of get our own perspective on things. People go through setbacks and breakthroughs, detours, and defining moments in their lives, and those leave a lasting footprint, not only just on them, but also on us. Okay. Um, what I'm about to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is really amazing. Today's guest knows exactly what it feels like to be knocked down and with a diagnosis of some sort. We'll get into that. Risa August, ladies and gentlemen, is an award-winning author, screenwriter, and TEDx speaker, and a Gestalt, I would say, practitioner. Yes, indeed. Her life took a dramatic turn after a brain tumor diagnosis forced her to really kind of reevaluate everything, right? Reevaluate her life, uh, her success, and she started to get into what I would call survival mode, right? But instead of staying trapped in fear or kind of letting adversity define her, ladies and gentlemen, Rissa made a bold decision that most people only daydream about, right? She got on a bicycle and rode across the country. Yeah, not metaphorically, but literally, ladies and gentlemen. That journey became more than miles on a map. Okay. It became like a search for healing, identity, truth, and purpose. We really love that. Her memoir, The Road Unpaved, has really inspired people all around the world to really embrace uncertainty. We all have that in our lives. You can confront your painful, transitions and also rediscover, ladies and gentlemen, who you are as a person underneath all the expectations that society kind of puts on us a little bit, right? This conversation is about reinvention, okay? It's also about what happens when the life you built kind of no longer is the same thing. It's also about courage, right? And it's about learning that healing doesn't just really mean going back to who you were before, but sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, healing pushes you forward to become the person you're really supposed to be. Um, and so whether you're navigating change, um, or kind of grieving an old version of yourself, which we all do from time to time, right? Or kind of standing at the crossroads, right? You don't really know what's going to happen and wondering what comes next. This episode, ladies and gentlemen, of Footprints is for you. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let's welcome to the show Risa August. I'll get it right.
You'll get it right. Yes, you had it right the first time. Rissa, it's so great to be here, Anthony. And thank you so much I wish I was in studio with you.
Well,
So thank you for making it happen virtually. And thank you for making me sound so fabulous. My
Well, I'll
God.
tell you something. I did a little research and I saw what you did, and you have an amazing life, and we're going to share it with the people right now. So, you live such a layered type of life. You're an author, you're a screenwriter, you did a TEDx, um, you're a TEDx speaker. We love that, uh, and you traveled around the world and all that. But before all that, here's what I want to know. Who was young Risa like? What was Risa like? I'm sorry. Who was young Risa like? And what kind of kid were you kind of growing up, Risa?
Yes, well, I grew up in outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and I was always an adventurous spirit. But I followed the rules. I was very
Uh,
well behaved, well mannered. But my favorite movies were Indiana Jones
oh
movies.
yeah.
I just loved the adventure of those.
Days of Lost Ark, yes.
And so a lot of that carried into
Hmm.
my adult years. But the key there is I followed the rules. I was just very rigid in how I lived my life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do everything perfectly. And without getting into too much psychology about it, I
I hear
just
you.
always had to have everything perfectly in place, and I always
Hmm.
had to do everything perfectly. And so when this big shift happened, I had a good hard look at all of that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
I can concur with that. Because life really throws a lot of curveballs at us, right?
mhm.
And so you're really creative in all of that stuff and in the process, I'm sure, of getting the diagnosis. Certain things probably switch with you, right? So was creativity always part of your DNA? Were you always a creative type of a person? Because I mean, you wrote a book about it. Was that something that was really kind of sparking you to do that, or what part of the creativity in you brought that about, basically, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, I think I always was creative, but I never acknowledged it.
Hmm.
And so there's these two there's the Risa before diagnosis and the Risa after diagnosis. And
Ah.
I think the Risa after post diagnosis is the one that started really tapping into all the parts of me that I kind of ignored
Hmm. Hmm.
for so
Hmm.
so long, so many because I was living, I was in that very rigid mindset of following the rules and doing everything what perfectly. And so once I was diagnosed, that all shifted. And so I think more of my creative, I just started letting more things come out, like
Hmm. Hmm.
creativity and like, I mean, this might sound silly, but like my love for fashion. I love fashion, but
Yeah.
I never really, you know, acknowledge that or express myself that way.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I'm thinking about a good question here, and I read it too. The like the way you're looking back at yourself, which I love this because now you're kind of doing a little self-examination. So, do you feel like your younger version of yourself um, already kind of knew there was more to discover about yourself? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like, oh man, I have to tap into that side of myself that I really haven't tapped into?
oh, I have the goosebumps, Anthony. Yes, I've actually thought about this. I do feel, I actually felt it like at a very young age that I feel like I had a very, I was a deep thinker at a
Hmm.
young age. And so I do remember thinking like there's more to life. Like there's more to me there, and I actually started traveling extensively.
Hmm.
I took a hiatus from college and started traveling and exploring the world and figuring out
Yeah.
who I was and exploring religion and
Yeah.
all those things. And so post surgery, Rissa, it was kind of revisiting all that. Like, who am
Yeah.
I now?
Wow.
Am I still some of those things? Am I
Hmm.
not any of those things anymore?
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
so that's the gift sometimes in adversity is having the opportunity to take a good hard look at things.
That's such an important point because so many people are functioning but kind of disconnected about what they really want to do and who they really want to become. So I think success on paper looks a lot different than it does in real life. Uh, and so some folks are lost with that whole thing. And for you to be able to discover that through your journey was amazing. There's not too many people that would be able to do that, to sort of get that perspective from what you were going through. Um, did you have a moment early in your life where you felt that disconnection beginning to kind of really show up in another way?
Uh, when I was younger, like
Yes, when you were younger,
pre-diagnosis, I
pre-diagnosis. Yes.
did. Yeah, in my family, I actually kind of felt like I didn't quite fit. I had this adventurous, like I want to explore and be
Hmm.
out in the world. And,
Hmm.
and my family's more kind of a like to be at home and, just very different views on life. And
Hmm.
so,
So let's explore that a little bit. What were
yeah.
the footprints that your parents left on you? What did your mom and dad do for a living?
My mother worked in the medical field. She was an X-ray technician, and then once ultrasound came out, she became an ultrasound sonographer. And
Hmm.
My father was the chief building inspector for a nearby city. And
So what was
yeah,
life like growing up for young Rissa?
it was actually quite challenging, to be honest.
Okay.
It was my parents were divorced
Hmm.
and there were a lot of challenges at home
Okay.
and I didn't always feel seen or
Hmm. Hmm.
acknowledged for who
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was.
Well, you
And
know what? Most people underestimate how exhausting that can be, right? And for you to live in that truth and be able to come through it and tell us a story about it is amazing. Uh, really, being able to be self-authentic and understand who you are as a person and going through that adversity, even when you were younger, sends us really kind of a great wake-up call. And for you, that wake-up call came in a very serious form. So let's talk a little bit about that. All right. The brain tumor diagnosis, right? So take us back to that moment when you learned about the brain tumor diagnosis and what was happening in your life at that time.
yeah, so the journey actually started about 7 years before that.
Hmm.
I had just completed my first Ironman race, and my friend was asked me, you know, kind of to do a 500-mile bicycle endurance ride, the following year. And after my Ironman race, I started noticing all these changes in my body
Hmm.
that I couldn't explain, and so that's when I start going to doctors. Fast forward 7.5 years. I kept telling my doctor, something is wrong in my body.
Sure.
Something is just not right. And I had severe, severe headaches that just never subsided. And I was sleeping, no exaggeration, maybe 2 hours a night because the
Wow.
headaches were so
Phew,
bad.
that's not good.
And so my doctor kept saying, well, you're not drinking enough water, you're overtraining, you're doing too much, you're stressed. And so I asked for an MRI and she said no. So I asked for an MRI again. She said
Hmm.
no.
Hmm.
And she's like, I'm not worried and they're expensive and I don't think you need one. And I said, I rather have peace of mind.
Hmm.
So order me the MRI. And then a week after the MRI, they found this tumor and um, it was a really surreal moment. There was
Hmm.
a moment there was like I was feeling this validation of I knew something was like just
Yeah.
knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I knew something was wrong.
Huh. That's an
And there
amazing
was,
moment.
gosh, it was very profound. Like that meant more to me than being told I had to have brain surgery and I had this
Hmm.
very gnarly disease attached to the tumor. I was just like, I don't care. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. And so
Wow. I
I
mean,
didn't know
so
the weight of it.
I don't mean to cut you off, Risa, but I mean, suddenly, right, your world has changed. Your future is different. You imagine it a little bit different. Now everything gets interrupted in your life. And now you have to reset and have to figure out what it is I'm going to do. Right. Now, did fear become overwhelming at that point? Were you a little nervous about what was going to happen once you got that diagnosis?
Well, it actually, I didn't know the weight of it at that point. I
Mm,
was I was still in that old Rissa way, the pre-diagnosis of
mm-hmm,
like, I have a very busy life. I have things I got to get done.
mm-hmm,
So just tell me what I have to do so we can get it done and I can get back to my life. It
mm-hmm.
wasn't until about 3 months post brain surgery that I found out they didn't get the entire tumor. The rest
Oh
was
boy.
inoperable.
Oh no.
And, we were looking at radiation treatment and medications moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I realized my life wasn't ever going to be the same.
Yeah,
And
for
then my
sure.
body was
Oh my gosh. Well, listen,
definitely.
I think one thing people don't talk enough about is how illness really kind of strips away the illusion of, hey, my life is great, but suddenly all things, the little things you were stressing over, they don't mean anything, right? They're not as important anymore because now you have you have to deal with your health and you got to figure out, the next step, how you're going to combat this, what you're going to do. Um, and so I would imagine the diagnosis changed your priorities a little bit, right?
Absolutely. Yes. My goodness. Yes.
Give us a little preview about that. What were some of the things that you had to change? I mean, I'm sure relationships and routines had to change a lot. Maybe your environment was like no longer made sense to you. So give us a little preview about that after you got the diagnosis and then you knew you were going to get treated and how you're going to attack it. How did things change specifically for you at that point?
Yes. Well, I think it was quite a process over time. But there were so many things I had to let go of. My body wasn't responding the same the way, as an
Mm,
athlete, I
mhm,
always knew how my body was going to respond, and it was no longer connecting with my brain. So, for example, if my brain said turn right, my body would turn left.
mm,
Or if I was typing on a screen like I always used to do, I'm very fast and good at typing.
mhm.
I would look up at the screen and it would just be a garbled, it would be just words and
Oh
numbers and it
my.
wouldn't make sense. And so there was this disconnection going on, which improved quite a bit over
Mhm,
time
mhm,
and has corrected itself. But I was still trying to be this old version of myself. So I was covering up a lot of like the short-term memory
mhm.
issues I was having,
Yeah,
all the mistakes I was having. Like I was known as a person who never made mistakes.
yeah.
I was known as a person who traveled the world and backpack, like trekked in Nepal and
Wow.
Australia, New Zealand,
Hmm.
and rode my bike across the country. And, so I was known as like all these things and I was still trying to uphold that, but for who? You know, that's
Exactly.
that
Yes.
was when I
That's a
had
great question. You know, suddenly you realize, people survive really difficult experiences physically, but sometimes emotionally they stay stuck in survival mode, right? And that happens quite a bit. When did you realize that surviving wasn't enough anymore? It was like that you really wanted something deeper. You had to go and really attack this thing. When did you realize that?
that was probably about 6 months post surgery, and I just completed 31 days of radiation treatment,
Hmm.
and I could barely get off my couch. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? I'm an Ironman athlete. Like I ride 65 miles a day for fun. Like I was really struggling with this, but that's who I was. That's who I was. But it was really a one moment on my sofa, and I was in these gnarly gray sweatpants that I talk about quite often, that I had been wearing for weeks and weeks. And I remember having this thought of like, I can't live this way. Like
Hmm.
I can't
Hmm.
live this way. And if I don't change that, I felt like I would die, whether that was, metaphorically or,
Hmm.
to me, it felt like death. And I had this moment of, oh my gosh, I've been so focused on what I can't do. Like I can't do this anymore. I can't do that. I shifted it and I
Hmm.
said, well, wait a minute, what can I do?
Yeah. So there it is. That's what you have to have when you get something like that. You have to have a mind shift, right? Your mindset has to shift. That's really powerful, Risa. I'll tell you, because there's a difference really between living and being alive, and eventually you have to make a decision, right? Right? And that changed everything for you. And very, very fortunate for me, it did because now we're here talking about it, which is awesome. You know what I mean? Really awesome. Now tell me a little bit about the cross country bike tour that you did, this bike journey you were on. That sounds like amazing. Like I can't even ride a bike across the city where I live, but this sounds like you had a great time. So you decided to bike across the country, which really sounds inspiring, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, if you like our content, please subscribe to BevCam. Also, we're on Apple Podcasts as well as uh, Spotify. Yes, indeed. Don't forget that. So I imagine at the time, people probably thought you had lost your mind when you were going to go do this thing, right? So what made you say, I need to do this? I need to go do this right now?
Well, it was actually that same day where I started asking myself, what can I do? And I really started looking at, well, wait a minute, there's been all these things in my life that
Hmm.
I've wanted to do that I've put off for so long. When was I going to do them?
Right.
I talk a lot about how someday never arrives. We always talk about
Yeah.
someday. It's always a someday and it never arrives. And so that day I got on the computer, started thinking about all these things. I'm like, I've always wanted to ride my bike across country. There's nothing that can stop me now. Like I've got a brain tumor. Like nothing's going to stop me.
Right.
And I knew I wouldn't ever do another Ironman race, but I knew I could still ride my bike.
Mm.
I just knew I could. And so I start looking at different routes, bicycle routes, and I found the one. I looked at all the ones that I thought I might do, and then I found the Pacific Coast from Canada to Mexico bicycle route, and I was like,
Amazing.
that's the one. And I signed up that same day. I didn't think about how I was going to get there or how I was going to train my way back.
Yeah.
I just signed up. Like that's all I had to do at that
I
moment.
love it. Just
I
jump in with
didn't
both feet. Boom, right into the
exactly.
water. Cold splash. I
Exactly.
love it. Right? So you got to think about it. There's something really kind of symbolic about a bike journey when you think about it. No shortcuts, no fast forward button, no hiding, right? Just you and the road, whatever you're carrying emotionally, physically, you're there. So what did that journey begin to uncover in you specifically, Risa?
Well, that's a great question. Because this was really a change in me. I went in very much old Rissa, like I'm gonna do this bike ride on my own. I don't need help from anybody.
Hmm.
I'm gonna do it my way. And I was very rigid about it.
Hmm.
And nothing goes according to plan,
No,
right? And
definitely not.
exactly. And so I really allowed myself to open up to receive support,
Hmm.
to go roll with the punches, go with the flow. There's one stretch just north of Santa Barbara that we had to be shuttled around. So because of a wildfire had crossed the road, so they closed the road. And I remember being really mad that what this is my journey and I'm supposed to be healing right
Right.
now and I was thinking of like breaking through the barriers and doing it in the cover of night
Hmm. Hmm.
and there were nine of us that shared this van to haul our gear
Oh,
from location to location
wow.
and which I thought was going to be easier and wasn't necessarily easier so
Yeah.
um but this one cyclist looked over at me and said, Rissa, people could be losing their homes right now, and you're upset about this 30-mile bike ride or
Hmm.
this 30-mile stretch.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
To put that in
earth your
perspective,
best.
right? That's
Exactly.
that's what it's all about. So now,
Exactly.
were there some moments during the trip where you just wanted to quit? You said, you know
Oh,
what? I'm done with this. I can't go on, even though you were an athlete previous to this.
oh my gosh, yes. The first 2 weeks of the ride were rainy and cold up in the Pacific Northwest, so through Washington and Oregon.
Hmm.
Washington was like, I mean, you're sleep. We were sleep like we all brought our own gear and everything, so
Mm.
so we all had to set up our own tents and we had our own equipment and gear and
Wow.
cook and all that ourselves. But we had a van that transported it from campground to campground each day. And
Hmm.
so I think I was, I don't know, like just another day, probably day 5, and then again at day 11. I just another day of waking up in the cold and rain, eating like oatmeal and
Hmm.
bagel and peanut butter in the rain, and then
Hmm.
biking in the rain, and then not really getting a hot shower at night, and then you're setting
Yeah.
up your tent in the rain,
Right.
and then my body just hurt so bad.
Right.
Because this disease that's attached to this tumor
Hmm.
called
Hmm.
acromegaly is very destructive to the body. And so I'd be throbbing in my sleeping bag and like, how am I going to get on my bike again today? I have no idea how I'm going to get on my bike again
Yeah,
today.
yeah. And so when you think about it, sometimes people romanticize like transformations. Ah, this is going to be great. But growth, honestly, can be ugly and lonely and painful, right?
Yes.
So you had to come to grips with all of that. And so now, I'm sorry, did the road, excuse me, force you to sort of confront parts of yourself you had been kind of like avoiding?
Oh, for sure. I did a lot of crying in that rain,
Yeah, I'm sure.
because no one would see it. Uh, it really was a battle between old Rissa and new Rissa.
Hmm. So you felt
There was,
yourself changing in real time, sort of like, right? Like it was
Mhm.
when you say in the battle, the yin and the yang, you're like, oh man, I feel this way, but now I feel this way, right? So you were kind of battling that whole thing, and you felt you were changing at that time, as you're going
Absolutely.
through a transformation, which is really amazing. You know,
Mhm.
there's something beautiful about physical movement,
Yes.
helping us kind of navigate through emotional stretches, which we really need to do. And sometimes we stay in that environment too long, right? And wonder why nothing inside us really changes. So for you, it was the trip that really gave you open the door to a new Rissa, which was really amazing for you. Did traveling across the country really help you release old identities as well?
I mean, I think so. Part of that trip was also contemplating my marriage.
Mm,
My 18-year marriage was dissolving, and um, again, there was that battle of what am I supposed to do versus what I
mm,
want to do,
right,
and what I should do versus, you know, what about me?
right.
What
What
do I
about me?
want versus what other people want?
Hmm.
And I think what I learned most is that, and you touched on this, is that the bike ride didn't fix everything.
Right.
But it helped me shift perspective, and
Mm,
it might have been like micro steps. It might have
hmm.
been just little things of like slowly opening up to support. I was always someone who didn't ever need help. I could do it myself, and
Hmm.
now suddenly I'm surrounded by people who want to help me, and so so again, it was just this process of maybe little things and allowing myself to have fun, and allowing things to, have like that detour, and like shifting my perspective of like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, big deal, 30 miles, like,
exactly.
and
I
so
love
there
it.
was just a lot of like little things that
Hmm.
kind of ended up to create this big thing.
Yeah,
And I think what I took from it was that the road doesn't just end, it
doesn't
keeps
end. It
going.
just keeps going. It's a journey in life,
Yeah.
right? And I imagine you met some people along the way who kind of left some footprints on you as well, on your life, and you vice versa with them. So any encounters during the trip that kind of stay with you today?
Oh, for sure. Um, So I'm thinking of three right now. The first one's kind of silly, but I was actually having a moment in the rain, another day of rain,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in remote Washington. I have no idea where I was. I was just on a rural road,
Hmm.
pouring rain, and I'm sitting here like, why did I do this? Why did I sign up for this?
Right.
And I happen to just look up, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, who gets to just wake up and ride their bike every day and
Right.
not have to worry about anything else? And so just as I looked up, I see this giant, bigger than human-sized teddy bear sitting in a recliner at the end of someone's driveway, just waving at passersby. And I'm like, had I not looked up, I would have totally missed this giant teddy bear sitting in a recliner in remote
You missed that moment.
Washington in the
How about
pouring
that?
rain. And so that's kind of a silly encounter I have. But as far as people go, one of the people who one of the cyclists on the trip was I call him my nemesis in the beginning
Oh,
because we
okay.
all introduced ourselves kind of before the ride, like before we even got to Washington.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, who is this jerk? I was so annoyed with him before I got there. And then one day, somewhere in, I think it was Northern California, and we had an opportunity to ride together, just
Hmm.
he and we had the best conversation. And to this day, I call him my BFF. Like we are, we've stayed in touch. Like he became my biggest advocate, um, and such a hero in my story. And so he was pretty spectacular. And what we started noticing is we were taking photos. We never rode together except that one day,
Hmm.
but we were taking photos of the same things,
Wow. How
which
about that?
really, yes.
Talk about
So
synergistic energy, huh?
right, right. And
I
so then
love
I
it.
started realizing we're a lot more alike than, maybe I would,
Hmm.
have first thought. And so again, staying open to that.
Yeah.
And then I met this other guy on the trip who um I was at a rest area again with the fella that turned out to be my biggest advocate. I call him
Hmm.
the physicist in the book. And he was always pushing me to share my story because that was part of it. I was
Hmm.
passing out buttons to kind of talk about my
Yeah.
journey and these tumors and my disease.
Hmm.
And he was nudging me to tell this fella who stopped at this rest area we
Hmm.
were at
Hmm.
my story. And suddenly this fellow was like, "Thank you for sharing that. I have to tell you." I just survived a brain aneurysm that only 10% of people survive.
Wow.
And so I gave up my corporate job, rented this or bought this van, this camper van, and he's
Hmm.
like, now I'm touring the country.
How
And
great is that?
and it was just a
That's
wonderful connection.
fabulous. That's
Yeah.
fabulous. Look at that. So the footprints that you left on each other were amazing. You inspired each other. You ended up doing like liking the same things and doing the same things. That's an incredible stories.
Yeah.
Incredible stories you have there, Risa. I'm telling you. And eventually that experience became the road unpaved. Let's talk about that because I'm really interested in that one. Writing the road unpaved, right? So you're writing a memoir, kind of requires like vulnerability that most people aren't really comfortable with doing and exposing themselves. What made you decide to tell your story publicly?
Yes, well, again, being back on the couch in those gray, gnarly sweatpants, looking at all the things I was going to do someday,
Hmm.
I always wanted to write a book. I
Mm.
think even since I was a child, I remember in sixth grade talking to my teacher about writing a book.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if I would start and then stop and start and stop. And
Hmm.
I don't know if this was the story that I was ready to share. But this was the story. And
Yeah.
and so and I wanted to check things off my bucket list. And right before it was published, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to see this. I don't want anyone to read this because it's so vulnerable and
Yeah.
and it's so cathartic writing it. But then suddenly when people are gonna see it and read it, I was like, oh wait, I don't know. But I went forward with it
Yeah,
and
well,
I'm
it's
so
always
glad
that
I did.
fear, you know. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but there's always that fear when you put yourself and make yourself vulnerable that people aren't going to really appreciate it, right?
Yeah,
But you're
yeah,
doing it because it's like almost a cleansing of your soul in a way, right?
absolutely.
And and people do have certain fears of that, of what other people think. I think memories matter because people see themselves inside of those type of memories that you're
Mhm.
actually doing and writing about. So what kind of feedback have you received from readers that you impacted mostly with this particular writing?
Oh my gosh.
I
There's
think I saw
so
one on LinkedIn.
Oh gosh, there's so many. It's so incredible. And I
That was
remember
awesome.
the first time I got like this incredible feedback from someone other than a family member or a friend. Um, I mean, I just bawled.
Mm,
I couldn't
hmm
hold it in. But I hear a lot of like, oh my God, I couldn't put this down. It really helped me like or made me think of like I could so relate for this reason or I can
Yeah.
so relate for that reason
hmm
or oh my gosh, you inspired me to get off the couch and do a 5K or I mean there's just so many things of like oh I think this should be a movie
hmm
but I think it was so personal for people how they connected with it
Right.
and it connects with people in ways like I never imagined it would like there were people gleaning stuff from it where I'm like, oh my gosh, you got that from it, and
Yeah.
it's amazing, and so I mean that's better than money. It's
Oh,
just
100%.
amazing.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Listen, now, has anyone ever told you that your story permitted them to really change the direction of their own life based on what you did?
Yeah, thank you. I have. I actually recently someone just just like three people they must have known I needed a boost that day because
Hmm
three different people who don't know each other texted or messaged me on the same day. One person said I am moving. I've always wanted to live in this other country and I am now taking steps to move there. I
hmm
plan to be there by next year and I have you to thank for that. Another person just launched his story, his memoir. And he's like, I would have never done this if it wasn't for you. Thank you so much
hmm
for how much you've inspired me. And so I mean, I just don't even know what to say to that. I'm just, I
It's
had another, yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
It's
And then you
awesome.
probably read the other one about the guy is like, I always wanted to take an improv class and now
Yeah.
I'm,
I
at
mean,
level.
think of the ripple effect and the footprints you're leaving by sharing your story. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful thing. I tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, please go by the unpaved road. As you can see, it is right next to Risa, right there. Yes, please go get that. That's a beautiful book, and trust me, I will be reading it tonight. I will read it, all of it. I'll probably finish it in a day. Looks like it's amazing reading, and I can't wait to dive in. Now, you never know who's quietly hanging on by a thread, right? Listening to your experience. And I think that's why conversations like this really matter, because folks may be in the same boat as you or may have a sort of a health scare, maybe not as traumatic as a brain injury or a brain tumor, but they might have something like that. But let's talk about healing and reinvention, because I think that's important too, right? Once you get something, some adverse news, now it's time to really move forward. What am I going to do next? Right? So, you helped other people through coaching and what is it called? Just Gestalt?
Gestalt, yeah.
Gestalt.
Yeah, Gestalt.
Gestalt practice. For the listeners who may not be familiar with this, and if you're watching this, what exactly is Gestalt? What is that? Tell us about that, Riz.
Sure. Well, I'll first start with Gestalt's a German word that loosely means wholeness.
Hmm
I have a friend who happens to be German, and she said there's not like a clear translation for it, but it's more about like being in the flow.
hmm
And so but the type of work I do or the type of coaching I do is it's more non-traditional and experiential and it's truly coactive. So this modality tends to this modality believes that we all have the answers within us. We all have, this internal um, power.
Mm,
I don't know if power is the right word, but But we have these answers within
Mhm.
us. And so my job as a coach is to help you find them and not hand them to you. I might think I know the answers, but really you're the one who
You got to
has the
figure it
answers.
out. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest emotional blocks that you see people struggling with today?
Oh gosh. Some of it is a lot of people feel like they need permission
Mm,
to almost to be themselves.
right. That's
And wait a
crazy to
minute.
think, right?
Right, right. I mean, I was there. I was there. And so it's incredible when I'm having a discussion with someone and they're like, "Well, wait a minute. You mean I can do that?" Well,
Yeah.
I can, and
That's real
so
right there. That's a real conversation right there.
oh
I
goodness,
like that.
right? Because a lot
That
of our constraints are self-imposed. Like there's
hmm
these beliefs that kind of collected over time of like
hmm
who we believe we are or the roles we kind of
yeah.
stepped into when internally, wait a minute, but that's not really who I am at all.
Yeah, yeah. Some people think transformation is kind of glamorous, but it's really sometimes like growth feels funny and like it's like losing your balance, really. But then all of a sudden, you find your footing again, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the most important aspect of being able to come through that. What would you say to someone listening right now who feels trapped in life that no longer their life doesn't really fit with their version of themselves? What would you say to them?
Gosh. I would say, oh, there's so much I would say.
Mm,
Where would I start? I'm trying to think of that moment I was sitting on the couch and
exactly.
you know,
That's a real moment you have in there,
yeah.
and that inspired you to do what you did. And so that's an authentic type of moment for you, right? And so what does that really mean to you now that you've done that part of it, right? And someone who's kind of trapped in that sort of same nether region, that person that's kind of like, I'm not sure if I should, maybe I could, maybe I shouldn't. Like if they're really kind of in that, what would you say to them?
I would probably ask them a question like, what would you do if anything was possible?
Hmm, great question. I know what I do.
Ooh, tell us.
So, if anything were possible, which I think it is, I would do this for a living. Been an educator for 25 plus years, um, and I love what I do. I enjoy the young people whose lives I get to influence and the journey that they go on after they leave us for their 4 years. And I love the seniors and I love all the freshmen that I teach. But I would do this for a living because I think stories like yours need to be told. And I feel like giving them a platform to speak on it and share their journey with other folks is really important because I feel like everybody has a story to tell. And someone left a footprint on us, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And we take those footprints and we move them forward. And what do we do with them? You know what I mean? And so for you, you didn't stay stagnant, even though you got a terrible diagnosis. You actually turned a negative into a positive, and not many people can do that. And so it's important for that aspect of life to really continue to be pushed forward. I feel like I'll be the lightness, the light in the darkness.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I would be if I could do this particular podcast for a living. So I'm striving to make that happen. It's been a couple of years, but we'll see. If it's meant to be for me, it'll happen. So
Yeah.
I just
Well,
keep striving forward.
you're already a light, and I bet the listeners could agree, like you're a natural. So
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you
yeah.
very much. I've had a lot of fun creating this podcast, and I was teaching a leadership class 2 years ago, and that's where it sprung from. I gave an assignment to my kids. Have you ever seen the movie Pay It Forward with Haley Joel
Yes.
Osment? Right, so you know
Yeah.
the premise of the movie, and he
Mhm.
starts this Pay It Forward movement. First of all, his seventh grade social studies teacher challenges him to change the world. and challenged the whole class. And he takes it literally and says, I'm going to start this pay it forward movement where I'm going to do three random acts of kindness for three people who can do nothing for me. And it grows exponentially. And unbeknownst to him, he thinks it doesn't work. But it does work because so much so that there's another reporter from another state running it down saying, where did this pay it forward movement come from? So he helps a bunch of people in the movie. They didn't know it. But toward the end of the movie, something dramatic happens. And the kids are like, oh my God, Mr. Davis, why'd you show us this movie? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. It's not about that. It's about what the kid did because
Yes.
he didn't know that he was like touching all these lives and helping all these people, right? And I said, after the movie, I told the kids, I said, now your job is to write me a 1 or 2 paragraph essay of how you would pay it forward to someone who could do nothing for you. And the stuff I got back was amazing, Miss. I got to tell you, it was
I
unbelievable.
bet. Oh
It
my
was it was
God.
amazing. At the same time, Mr. Thomas, our wonderful principal, shout out to Mr. Thomas, sent an email around to the staff that said BevCam was looking for teachers to provide content. And I always wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't know what it would be on. And I started thinking about the assignment and how the impact on that assignment had on me and on the kids. And I just called my podcast Footprints because it made sense to me. Because everybody has a story to tell and everybody has a footprint touched by them, by their parents. Maybe they give them some sort of advice, their grandparents, their brother, their sister, their mother, their father, whoever it be. Maybe their boss at work they look up to, right? But everybody leaves a footprint on you. So I felt like I needed to have those stories told. And I'm so happy you're here telling your story to us today. It's amazing. It really
Oh,
is.
such a gift.
It
Thank
really
you.
is. Um, it's about really aligning yourself with what's possible, and you did that. You did that with your whole story. It's been amazing. All right, I
Oh,
got some rapid fire questions I want to ask.
okay. Okay.
Um, the first thing that comes to your mind, just let me know
Oh
what you think.
gosh.
All right,
Oh,
Rissa, here we
okay. I'm
go.
not good at these. I'm not good at these.
Well,
Okay.
you'll be fine. You'll be fine. These are all layups. These are all easy ones. All
Okay.
right. What's one word that describes your journey?
Oh my gosh. Limitless.
Limitless. Oh, I love that word. In fact, it's so funny. I'm watching a show right now on Prime called Limitless. It's about
Oh.
a guy who takes a pill, an NZT pill, and he accesses his brain, his whole brain. He can do all these amazing things. It's awesome. I
I
love
remember
that
that
word.
movie. Yes.
Perfect. All right. What's something adversity taught you that comfort never could?
Oh gosh. It taught me like what really matters in
Mm,
life. Like
for
what's
sure.
important. Yeah.
Yes. Where's a place that changed your perspective forever when you were going through your bike trip? What place specifically changed your perspective forever?
Oh, well, I don't want to give away too much because there's a whole chapter in this in
Oh,
my
there
book.
is. Okay. You can
Um,
just give us a little
okay.
preview.
But there's a moment just before I reached Big Sur, and the I don't know if people are familiar with Big Sur, but like the road is very there's sheer cliffs off the road
Mm,
and there's
mm,
no guardrails and
yes.
it's
Ooh,
very little bit scary but beautiful. And
yes.
so again, very metaphorical about sometimes the best things are a little scary. So,
Yes, indeed, without a doubt. Without a doubt. What's one habit that keeps you grounded today?
ooh, meeting myself where I'm at. And what I mean by that is checking in each morning.
Okay.
Okay, like what is my energy level at? Well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what do I want to accomplish today? What will help me feel productive?
Yeah.
And what is one thing, at least one thing I can be grateful for today?
Wow, I love that. I love that 100%. Wow, that's great. Um, what does healing look like for you now as opposed to then?
Oh, oh, it's messy. There's nothing, like you said, there's nothing glamorous about it. And so
Not at
I can
all.
have amazing days and I can have days where I may as well be back in those gnarly gray sweatpants. And I think just having, you know, talking to myself like I would talk to a good friend, just having patience for the
Hmm.
process and
Yeah.
nothing's linear.
Oh, of course. I love
Yeah.
that too. Uh, and finally, What footprint do you hope to leave behind?
Oh gosh. And I actually thought about this before our chat today. My hope is that people learn to believe in themselves
Mm, hmm.
and that anything is possible. And it might not look exactly the way you want it,
Yeah.
but it could be just as good, if not better.
Oh
So
my. I adhere to that philosophy a lot. Anything is possible. I liken back to the 2008 Boston Celtics when Kevin Garnett said that, and they won the
ah,
championship, right? Anything's possible. Man, I'll tell you, Rissa, what a conversation we had today. A huge thank you to Risa August, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today and sharing her journey with honesty, vulnerability, and courage. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this episode is that life doesn't always fall right like we want it to. Sometimes it falls apart, not to really destroy us, but sometimes it falls apart to introduce us to ourselves and who we really are. Okay. Rissa's story reminds us that reintervention, ladies, or what I say, and she's reinventing herself. Uh, Anything is possible at any stage of life, first off. And secondly, we want to make sure that even after pain, even after fear, even after loss, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe especially after all those things, life really can be meaningful again for us. Okay. A lot of people listening right now are probably standing really at some sort of crossroads in their life. And believe me, if you are, please share this episode with the person who really needs it and needs to hear this. Um, Maybe your career no longer fulfills you. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe you've gone through a health scare like Rissa did. Maybe you've outgrown the version of yourself that once felt safe. Whatever it is, don't ignore the signal, I would say, okay? Because the road ahead may be uncertain, and it usually is for all of us, but sometimes the unpaved road, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly where we discover who we really are, okay? And we also want to be sure to check out Risa's memoir, right? Risa August's memoir, ladies and gentlemen, The Road Unpaved, and follow her work online for more inspiration and coaching and insight. And again, if this episode moved you, share it with someone who really does need to hear it because I think it's important. And that's how footprints are spread, ladies and gentlemen, all throughout the world. Um, one story at a time, one conversation at a time, and one life at a time. My name's Anthony Davis. I'm an educator at Beverly High School, and I would like to thank Rissa August for really hanging out with us today and having a great conversation. I think we need to keep walking our path like she did. And even when the road looks unfamiliar and unsafe, we know eventually we're going to get there because it's the journey, not the destination, that really is important. And I always leave you with this last thing. I always ask this question of all my guests, and I ask this question of you who are listening. Who left a footprint on you? I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye bye.